Hi everyone, it's Miss Longmire here, and I know that we are going to be taking the TNReady test soon. So my goal today is to give you some writing prompt practice. Your first test that you take for TNReady testing will be the writing part. And sometimes when you hear that, it can seem a little scary and it can make you a little bit nervous, but you don't have to be scared or worried when you know what to expect, because you can be prepared and you can think about what to do and be confident that you know how to answer the prompt and that you answered the question correctly. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll teach you how to answer a writing prompt. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look and read all of the directions. So we're going to start here. In subpart 1, you will read a passage and answer some questions. Then you will read the writing prompt and then type a response to the writing prompt in the text box provided. Make sure you answer all the questions. I would say this right here is the most important part. Make sure you answer all the questions, and we will talk more about that in just a few minutes. Okay, it says read the passage and answer the questions that follow. Make sure you answer all of the questions. Now, there's going to be a passage here, and then there's going to be some questions afterwards, and then the writing prompt. We're not going to worry so much about answering the questions, the A, B, C, D multiple choice questions. We're focusing right here in this lesson, we're going to focus on the writing prompt. So we're going to read this passage and then we're going to focus on the writing prompt that it gives us. Excerpt from Dog Sense. By the way, don't let the word excerpt throw you off. The word excerpt just means it's a part of something, a part of a story. So it's not the whole story, it's part of the story. And that'll make more sense later. By Sneed B. Collard. Guy has just moved from California to Montana. He brings his new friend Luke home to meet his dog, a border collie named Streak. "He's the fastest dog I ever saw," Luke says. "Yeah, he's pretty fast." I try to sound modest. "Aw, that reminds me," Luke says. "Did you hear about the fall fair?" "I heard the announcement at school." Before Mrs. Miniman's class this morning, Principal Good came on the intercom and announced that the fall fair would be held the weekend after next. I'd never heard of a fall fair, but quickly learned it was some kind of fundraiser to help pay for the rest of the year's activities. "Aw, I was thinking Streak would be perfect for it." "Perfect for what?" I ask. "The Frisbee contest." Luke takes the ball from Streak and tosses it again. I have no idea what he's talking about, but the word Frisbee gets my attention. Back in California, my friends and I used to play ultimate Frisbee all the time. "You know," Luke tells me again, "the Frisbee contest. Every year at the fall fair, there's a dog Frisbee catching contest. You bring your dog and see how many times he can catch the Frisbee in a minute. They score you by how far you throw the Frisbee and whether your dog leaps into the air to catch it. Streak would be perfect for that." There's only one problem," I tell Luke. "Streak can't catch a Frisbee." "Do you have one?" "Yeah, I think so." I go into the house and say a quick hi to Grandpa, just long enough to pour him a glass of V8 and rummage through the boxes in the back of my closet. After a few minutes, I unearth a beat-up Frisbee I brought from California. "Oh, perfect," Luke says when I return to the backyard. "Let's see what old Streak can do." Streak drops the ball and eyes the Frisbee curiously as Luke pulls his arm back. Luke gives a couple of fake throws to let Streak know that it's a game. Then he flings the faded blue disc across the backyard. It's not a good throw and dives quickly, but Streak bounds after it. He doesn't try to catch it, instead waiting until it hits the ground before snatching it up. He does carry it back to us, though, a good sign. "Here, let me try," I say. I make a short side-armed throw with the disc, causing it to float longer than Luke's throw. Streak is waiting for it when it comes down and it bonks him on the head. Luke and I laugh, but Streak enthusiastically grabs the disc and rushes back to us. I love the visual, love the picture. Luke and I begin trading off throwing the frisbee. On the third throw, Streak snaps at the frisbee as it comes down. On the fourth and fifth throws, he looks like he's trying to catch it. On the sixth throw, he actually seizes it in his mouth, and Luke and I whoop for joy. I love that picture. It's so cool. By the 10th throw, Streak is leaping into the air to intercept the frisbee when it's still 3 or 4 feet off the ground. I try to give Streak a doggy treat as a reward, but he shakes me off. He just wants another chance at that frisbee. He's a natural, Luke says as I toss the disc again. Okay, let's look at number 1. What does the word rummage mean as it is used in paragraph 13? So we would go back to paragraph 13, and you can tell that they're numbered right here. And we're going to look for the word rummage. Rummaged through the boxes. When you're rummaging through boxes, when you rummage through boxes, what are you doing? You're searching through boxes. So I'm not going to go through all of these questions, but make sure when you see the question refer to a certain paragraph, for example, paragraph 13, that you go up and you look at paragraph 13 to see what they're talking about. That's why they're numbered. So it's important to look at those. All right. So now let's look at the writing prompt down here. This is the biggest thing that we want to focus on right now with this lesson. So here's the writing prompt. You have just read a passage about 2 boys trying to teach a dog to catch a frisbee. Think about what Guy and Luke do to train Streak to catch the frisbee. Write a paragraph that describes what happens next, including whether or not Streak wins the frisbee contest at the fall fair. You may use information from your own experiences and knowledge about the topic in your response. Okay, so let's stop right there. There's more, but we're going to stop right there. When we look at the writing prompt, okay, it's asking you a lot of things here. So first of all, it's referring to the passage we just read. You're not going to write about Fortnite or unicorns. You're going to write about what we just read about Guy and Luke and their dog Streak and what is happening in the story. Okay, you're going to focus on that. Now, it asks you to think. So you're going to think about what these 2 boys do to train Streak. What were they doing? Well, they were throwing the frisbee different ways and trying to get him to catch it in midair and things like that. Okay, so it wants you to think, and you can even read back if you need to. And then it's going to ask you to write a paragraph that describes what happens next. So there's really not going to be any right or wrong answers in a writing prompt like this, because some people may write what happens next is they go and they lose, but Frisbee learns a lesson and he gets better and starts training for the next one. Or maybe someone may write in their paragraph that they win, that Streak wins because Luke and Guy trained him so well and he actually wins and surprises them. So you could go either way with this, really. The most important part is that you're going to make sure you answer the question completely, okay? So not only are you going to describe what happens next, you're also going to include whether or not Streak wins, okay? So you need to say what happens next and then did he win or not win? Kind of tell the story of that happening. You may use information from your own experiences and knowledge about the topic in your response. And these things are really important as well. We'll get to this number 3. Be sure to answer the prompt completely. We just talked about that. Write at least 1 paragraph. You can write 2 if you'd like, but focus on making that one paragraph really great. And if you want to write more than that, that's totally fine. Just make sure that you're answering this prompt no matter what you write. Make sure that you are answering the question they ask. Use correct spelling and grammar. Use correct capitalization and punctuation. Use evidence from the passage to support your response. Now, remember that first word, think. Take a few minutes to think about the passage and prompt so you can plan your response before you begin to write. You may read the passage and writing prompt again to yourself. Do your best to write a clear and complete response. So here's how I would answer that prompt, and I'll have to explain why I used some of the words that I used. I want you to look at the tense first of all. Luke comes over every day. We used. That's present tense. It's not something that you might see a lot when you're writing or when you're reading a story, but let me show you why I used that wording. So looking back at the story, you can see that the writer uses the present tense. Streak drops his ball. Luke pulls his arm back. It's happening in the present tense. He doesn't say Streak dropped his ball. Luke pulled his arm back. So I don't know how much that matters to the people that will be grading this writing, but I think it is a really good idea, if you think of it, to go ahead and stick with the same flow or the same tense of writing. So that's what I did. Luke comes over every day to practice with Streak. We use my grandpa's old stopwatch and practice timing Streak to see how many times he can catch the frisbee in 1 minute. We throw the ball for hours, taking turns until it's time for Luke to go home and eat dinner. Sometimes Streak gets tired and rests in the shade of the big oak tree. If you'll notice, I added some details. I didn't just say Streak lays down or Streak rests. I tried to add some details in there, the shade of the big oak tree. After seeing how quickly Streak is learning, we are confident he will win the dog frisbee catching contest. It's the big day of the dog frisbee catching contest, and I can tell Streak is excited. He is sniffing everything in sight. Again, I used things that I already know about dogs, which it said that I could do that in the prompt. I know that dogs sniff everything when they're excited, so I put that in my paragraph. We wait in the big tent with the other dogs and owners, and I'm surprised by how patient Streak is while waiting his turn and watching the other frisbees being thrown. I thought he would surely go wild. Finally, it's Streak's turn. I decide to let Luke throw the frisbee while I use the stopwatch. Streak impressed everyone. He was the fastest dog at the fair and won a first place ribbon. I have never been so surprised, yet so proud. This last sentence is kind of a closing sentence. It wraps everything up. I have never been so surprised, yet so proud. Or you could say, I have never been so surprised and proud at the same time. Or I have never been so surprised to see Streak as happy as he was. Or I don't know. You could make any kind of closing sentence to wrap up that paragraph, but just make sure the last sentence that you write kind of just wraps up this paragraph or double paragraph into a nice little package. And you can see I did split it into 2 paragraphs here. And the prompt says write at least 1 paragraph. Instead, at least 1. You need to write 1 or more. You may not have time to write more. I felt that my writing would have done better broken into those 2 paragraphs because they were kind of the way that I talked about preparing for the fair and then going to the fair. I felt like that was important to make 2 paragraphs, but you don't have to, as long as you write at least 1 if that's what the prompt says. The most important thing was that I described what happened next, and then I also included whether he won. So I answered the prompt. I answered the whole prompt. I made sure to do all of this. I used evidence from the passage and things in the passage. I mentioned the time. I mentioned my grandpa because he's back here in the story. So that is how I answered that prompt. And I wanted you to just have an idea of how to answer the writing prompt on the test and how to organize your thoughts when it comes to a writing prompt on the TNReady test. So I'll see you guys next week. Bye.